Welcome to Business Nature TV. We are a forum for entrepreneurs to grow their business, find their audience, and mark their brand. My name is Jamila Lee, and today we have a great panel of experts joining us to discuss a few very important topics that matter to a startup or a leader. Today we're going to discuss emotional intelligence in the workplace and what are the traits that a leader should show in when they are using emotional intelligence effectively. We are also going to talk about diversity in the workplace, litigations, and the importance of a startup owner or a leader to understand their rights when it comes to protecting themselves from lawsuits. Today we have three experts joining us. Dr. Wanda Bonnet from the Dr. W. Life Skills Institute. We also have Maria Rivera, Senior Human Resource Leader. And we have Jose Batista, who is an expert in security and drug-free workplace. Dr. Wanda holds a doctorate in philosophy in holistic nutrition. She is a former chemist with a master's in business administration. She is also a Florida licensed massage therapist, oncology massage specialist, and a professional life coach. Dr. Wanda also developed the Dr. W Emotional Intelligence Model. Today we want to discuss the impact emotional intelligence actually has in the workplace. We know that leadership takes training and practice, and we want to talk to Dr. Wanda Bonet today about how a leader shows traits of emotional intelligence and how does that impact the success and development that they could have in their organization. Dr. Wanda, welcome to Business Nature TV. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Yamira, for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here talking about emotional intelligence for all.
Thank you. So, Doctor, we want to talk today about what are the leadership traits that a successful and effective leader shows as they develop and grow their business based on emotional intelligence.
That is a great question, Yamira. But before that, we have to define what is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is a set of skills that help the person to manage, understand first, manage, and regulate emotions, their own emotions and the emotions of others. We live and we share this environment with others. We are not alone. That means that we have to take in consideration the emotions and the behaviors of others. That makes us a great leader. A great leader is a person that has the people skills to be productive, to be effective, and be able to develop a culture where the people feel comfortable, that they have satisfaction, and they feel happy. And this is what makes a great leader. A culture of leadership is a culture where emotional intelligence is in place. And this is one of the traits, or most of the traits that leaders shows and they are successful are traits that are based in emotional intelligence. Maybe they don't know it yet, and it's maybe something that they have naturally, but sometimes they have learned it because it could be learned. Those four traits has been defined by Daniel Kahneman, that was the person that introduced in his book Emotional Intelligence back in 1995. They are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and empathy or relationship management. Let's go by one each of them. Self-awareness is when you listen and respect yourself and your emotions. You know about yourself, you are grounded, you know what triggers you, you know about your emotional memories. Self-management is when you respect and honor those emotions, that you know how to behave, where, how, that you find those spaces that are safe and confidential to express yourself. When we go to talk about social awareness, it's the same thing, listening and respect but others, the emotions of other people. When we are in an environment, in an organization, we have employees, we could have less, or we could have thousands of employees. And how we are going to deal and manage them in a way that we build that culture. The last one is relationship management. And this is important in any area of our lives. Could be marriage, could be parenting, could be organizations, could be managers, supervisors, because we have to build this relationship to build customer service and to have a more successful and productive organization.
Doctor, as you mentioned, all of these traits that are important for a leader to develop, it helps me. I have to think about when you are building a business, when you're starting a company, or when you're in a leadership position, you could get caught up in a lot of the everyday mundane things, like problem solving, meeting the production goals that a company needs to have to stay open. So I'm wondering how, as you say that you can learn emotional intelligence, how can a person discipline themselves to understand and apply these terminologies when they're actually on the field? It's because it's easy to talk about it and say it, but how do you actually break bad habits, or not necessarily bad habits, other habits, and you start getting yourself into developing your emotional intelligence as a leader in the workplace? How do you get to that point?
The first part is take responsibility, is make the decision to learn and build a different culture in your organization. As a leader, you are the one that plant that seed and develop those protocols, standards, and that strong culture that is based in those skills. And responsibility is something so important in emotional intelligence, honestly. This is why the leader is the person that start up and need that as part of the business plan or the startup business plan. The person has to be aware of their emotions, be able to build that team that is going to help, and the team that is going to welcome this culture and is going to adopt that culture as part of the daily basis operation. And that is, start with the supervisor, start with the manager, start with the president, or maybe with the CEO. But also in the hiring process, you have to be aware that those skills are the ones that you want in your organization, in your company. You don't want employees that are not open to learn, or maybe they don't have those skills. In the hiring process, in the human resources, you have to start with the culture that you want to have for the rest of the time, because you know that if you base your business in an emotional intelligence culture, the job satisfaction is going to mean productivity, effectiveness, and happy. Everybody's going to be happy, and at the bottom line, you want customers that be happy. That means that to have customers that be happy, you need to have employees that are going to treat well those customers, and those employees have to be happy. To have employees that are happy, you need managers and supervisors that are happy. And how you are going to find that happiness is listening to your emotions and paying attention to them. One of the facts are that 60% of the top issues in organizations are people related. That means that if we could focus in the issues that are people related, with building a culture where you take in consideration the emotions of others, you could solve 60% of the 65% of your issues. That means that you have more time, less stress, and you're going to have more productivity in your organization.
Great point you bring there. Definitely. When it comes to leadership also, and I gotta focus on that, because when you are it's not the same thing to say I'm a manager than to say I'm a leader. It's two total different things. I think a leader understands what it's like to develop other people. Managers are just following a script, or following their mandatory duties to make sure they're watching everybody that is under them. But we also see a lot in corporate America, and even in small businesses, that it starts from the top. So the way you have that founder and that president and the values that they have as leaders are also going to reflect, like you mentioned, in every other level under them. So when you have a company that's struggling with customer service, you want to look at what are the values of that company and what are those top leaders and executives showing or expecting from their teams. So, Doctor, let's talk a little bit about those traits that actually define a leader. And we talked about better discipline. I know I was doing some research on Warren Buffett. I think he is a very interesting mind. I think he's very wise, and he's defined by his tenacity. This man is 83 years old, and he's worth over $53 billion. So there, he's obviously had shown great leadership skills to get to the point where he's at. So how can a smaller business owner or a leader, even I see a lot of nonprofit organizations where their leaders are like, they wear so many hats. So how can they get to that point to self-discipline and to be successful?
Yes, Yamira, this is a great question. And discipline is one of the skills, but we call it commitment. Commitment is when you take the responsibility of what you want to do and which is the behavior and the culture that you want to bring to your organization. And you know where you at and where you want to be. And you have that strong why, that this is why I want to, the legacy that I want to bring to my organization. Also the creativity, how I'm going to implement this to my organization, how it's going to be welcome, how it's going to translate to the floor, to those employees, and then to the customer, because this is what we want. We want to build that environment that is safe, that the people could be authentic, but also they are committed to the organization and with the goals of the organization. And it's important, the communication. Communication techniques is a must. How we communicate, how we get informed the people in the organization, that they could feel that they are important, that we take care of them, but we also have protocols, procedures, standards that we have to follow, because sometimes it's just the law, or it's because the organization is more effective. We cannot compromise the organization or the business. That means that how we communicate that to the different levels of the organization is a skill that a leader has to have, and this is part of the discipline that the leader has.
Okay. And the second trait that we want to discuss today is self-awareness. And another leader that I find fascinating is Indra Nooyi. She is in charge of PepsiCo right now. And she's well known for overcoming barriers and also her personable character. I read that she wrote a note to 36 of her executives, their parents, to let them know what a wonderful job they did raising those executives, those leaders. And to me, that's a touch that is important, because I feel when employees or your resources feel that you care about them in a personal level, they're more likely to follow and work harder for your mission. So with that said, self-awareness is a trait that this lady definitely shows, because she is aware of the barriers that she has to overcome, being that she's a woman. She comes from a background where women don't often have leadership roles. However, right now she's on top of the world, literally, with Pepsi company. So how can you describe for me self-awareness, and how can someone else, without the experience that Indra Nooyi has, develop self-awareness?
She is an awesome example, Yamira. And actually, it's really important when you know yourself. I guess this is the first step. And when you could be authentic with yourself and don't be afraid of your emotions. We are humans. All of us we have emotions, and how we could be meek is important, even the position that I have, because people are looking at you, and that's okay. But what is important is how I see myself, how confident I feel, how it's my self-esteem, without put layers that could cover who you are. Just be you, crystal clear, and let people see you. And when you could communicate to others and you could appreciate and acknowledge others, is because you know yourself, you are not afraid of show. And I guess that this is one of the skills that she has. He is so open that she know who is she, and she could express it, and that is so welcome and make her so successful.
Yeah, she doesn't make any excuses for who she is. She just goes and overcomes the challenge. She's actually considered a global influence, and that's huge to me nowadays, where corporate is dominated by a male force. Having a woman who's also a minority, who also comes from a background that is so restricted, for her to develop to the point that she has, that's definitely emotionally intelligent on her part. So it's great to be able to see those traits. The next trait that I want to talk about is faster leadership development. And for this one, I wanted to mention Richard Branson. Just because Mr. Branson, he's our globally known icon, but he dropped out of school. His priority was not completing a degree. However, his traits as a leadership and the fast way that he developed himself has taken him to where he's at now. So let's talk about that. The difference between being academically prepared and being emotionally intelligently prepared to succeed.
That is so interesting, Jamira. And actually, this has been the base of all the, if we call it, discussion about emotional intelligence from the beginning. When Daniel Coleman said in his book that EQ, or emotional intelligence, is more important than be smart, or IQ. And I personally think that we need both. But when we deal with people, and remember, we are not isolated in an island beach by ourselves. We have to deal with people, we have to relate with people, we have to talk to people. And management is about people, because you cannot be a manager by yourself. That means that you need people to manage. That means that those skills that are emotional intelligence. And another thing, people are emotions. You cannot take the emotions from the people. In the back days, I remember when the people say, keep your personal life and your emotion at home and come to work, focus in work. No one could do that. It's kind of split yourself in two, and that is not, it's not real. Everybody is complete, it's a wholeness. That means that it's so important that be aware of your emotions, and when you are a leader, be aware that the people is an emotional aspect of them, and that put the leader in another position. That is so important. And then the emotional intelligence skills give you the opportunity and give you the critical set or the setting to understand others and be able to have the empathy to have better relationships.
When a leader shows these traits that we've been mentioning, self-awareness, self-discipline, and fast leadership development, they also attract better talent. When you have a company that is showing that they know what they're doing and they have a well-organized system, you're going to attract better talent. And when we talk about attracting A+ talent, we also have to talk about diversity, because a lot of companies are seeking the talents that come with differences in culture. However, if that's not handled appropriately, that could become an issue. So let's talk a little bit more about diversity in regards to attracting diverse talent for a company.
That is an awesome point, Jamira. And diversity, emotional intelligence and diversity has been studied because the openness, the social awareness, the relationships come when opening the doors to different people. Everybody's different based in culture, traditions, educations, and also connection to the source. That means that everybody that comes to your organization is going to have a different set of skills and a different way of thinking that the leadership and also the organization have to have that culture that give the importance and welcome the diversity and also the talents that come with that diversity.
And Doctor, I think this is a very general question, but we want to talk a little bit more to go in depth with diversity. How can a micro business that doesn't have the resources of a big business handle diversity in the workplace if they want to secure a more multicultural pool of talent? And what do they do? And also, how can a startup protect themselves by learning about more about diversity, protect themselves from lawsuits if an employee treats someone in a way that is not ethical because they don't understand diversity? And for that, we are going to have Maria Rivera, Senior Human Resource Leader, help us define what is like for a small business to understand diversity and apply it in the workplace. Maria has vast experience as Assistant Vice President in Employee Relations and Litigation Prevention. Also, she has been a Vice President and Human Resource Site Leader for a Fortune 500 financial service company. Maria earned a Juris Doctorate from the University of Buffalo Law School and also holds a Bachelor's in Science from New York University. Maria, what is the biggest impact that you have experienced with diversity in the workplace?
There are a lot of businesses that forget the human in human resources. And in the past, it was called personnel. So some of the experiences that I have had, Yamira, are that a lot of executives, managers, leaders forget that everyone is different. We cannot manage everyone the same way. Yes, we have to have a mission statement for the organization. We have to have rules, policies, and practices in place. But we need to understand that everyone is a human being with different needs, different types of emotional intelligence, and there are two ingredients that are very simple for every business owner, whether again it's a large organization, is to treat everyone with dignity and respect. Saying a simple thank you, how are you, and being genuine. In other words, being an authentic leader, showing humility rather than wielding your power in order to get an employee to function are really keys to being successful in your business. You really engage your employees when you treat them with respect. And when it comes to diversity, if you don't understand a particular culture, have rules in place. We have different religions. So have a contemplation room where people can go pray. Be flexible in their schedules. If employees they have families. We know we have to have the business run and be productive, right? But in order to have that business run, you need to, again, treat all of your employees with respect, because without your employees, you will not have a business.
That's a great point. And you mentioned people treating employees with dignity. And I think that overall, with emotional intelligence too, that kind of should be a life basic best practice, let's put it that way. But when it comes to the workplace, how can you take perhaps a manager or a leader, right, that may have a little bit more of an aggressive way to communicate, adhere to treating people with that dignity and that respect that you spoke about? Because we're talking about someone's personality, right, and then we're talking about best practices as managers. How do you combine those two?
In your business, it's important to have policies and practices in place. So, for example, if your manager is aggressive and you see that, then have honest and open feedback. Coach that person. And you have to have those practices in place. For example, progressive discipline. In most of the organizations that I've been in, progressive discipline or performance management has to deal with, you coach them first, then you can have a written warning, you can put them on a final written warning, and not in that order, but you have to be able to first have open dialogue with the manager and let them know this is your style, and make sure that they're receptive to that feedback, Jamila. And that is how you will get the emotional intelligence from that manager, which is helping them understand, if you continue to behave this way, you are not going to be successful in the culture that we're creating. You are not acting like a leader. You're being a bully. And if you need to be that honest, then do so, because that manager can create litigation issues for your organization. An angry employee is an employee that will not hesitate to go outside and sue you.
Great point. Great point. You mentioned the bullying, and of course, when nowadays when you hear bullying, you think about teenagers behaving in an immature way, going after each other. But the truth of the matter is that bullies grow up, and then they change from being students, they become then leaders or managers at their home or their workplace. So they still carry in those traits. We know, of course, that harassment is very common in a workplace. And when we speak of harassment, you don't necessarily have to speak of sexual harassment. You could, speak of other types of harassment, which is a bullying type of management. If someone could feel harassed, if somebody makes fun of their accent, or if they make derogatory comments about their culture in front of them. So there's different points of harassment. Now, how can a small business owner or a startup protect themselves from perhaps a lawsuit, like you say, like litigations caused by one employee or even by themselves without them even noticing that they're treating somebody in a way that can open the door for litigation? What can I do? What kind of steps can they take?
Jamila, you raise really excellent points. And harassment, uncomfortable work environment, sexual harassment, they all fall under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. The way that a business owner can protect themselves is by there are inexpensive videos out there. If you have a small business, that you can set your employees, set a time for them to meet and look at these videos on preventing harassment in the workplace. And yearly show those videos to your employees so they can understand what not to do. Not only show them to the managers, but show them to the employees so that everyone is aware of what they need to do or what not to do in order to avoid harassment in the workplace. We talked about diversity on the panel. Again, we all have different accents. Every single person has an accent. But do not mention that to your employees. Recently, I had an example where someone called me to ask for guidance, where she was asked not to speak Spanish in the workplace. And she was hired as a bilingual agent.
And that's interesting, Maria, because she was hired as a bilingual agent. She has the talent, because for me, someone that knows a language different than mine, I take that as an addition.
Yes.
To me, that's a talent. Being able to speak a different language, being able to collaborate with someone from a different culture, to me, that's a gain for any company. You're opening more doors, you're attracting a different audience. But not everybody has that mindset. That's what you're saying. Not everybody has that mindset. Sometimes, we fear what we don't know. And that's where we tap on our emotional intelligence to kind of define why could that be an issue. So in the case of this individual who reached out to you, what can they do?
Well, again, it's a slippery slope, right? We're talking about small business owners, and then we have the individual employee. So what the business owner can do in order to avoid that is, again, show the video to avoid harassment in the workplace. Even when you're interviewing someone, you have to have a savvy recruiter that can ask the appropriate questions, because you can be sued for that as well by asking inappropriate questions. Oh, what kind of accent is that? Are you pregnant? Do you have a family? Those are questions that you do not ask. So first, when you're getting people in the door, make sure you're asking the right questions. Then when you onboard people, make sure that you have your harassment video or harassment, if it's a video or a panel, to teach people what not to do in the workplace. That way you become a risk-averse organization. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting yourself. You're protecting the people that are going to work for you and do the work for you to make your business successful.
Excellent. Excellent. Those are great best practices, definitely. And what I'm getting from what you're saying is keep the communication open. It's
Absolutely.
important to have set standards, best practices, systemize your business from the top, from the get-go, and keep the communication open as you continue to recruit your talent. So that's definitely a great way to save yourself the trouble of having to be accused of harassment. And now you have to handle an issue that you didn't expect to handle. It's going to probably cost you money. It could cost you the reputation of your company too.
And Damira, you raised really good points, because my mantra as a human resources professional has always been treat everyone with dignity and respect when you onboard them and when you offboard them. So when it comes to having to terminate someone, you treat them with the same respect that you treated them when you brought them inside your organization.
So the bottom line is treating your employees with dignity and respect. At the end of the day, it's going to pay off more than trying to bully them into following you, when you could actually inspire them to fire you. There's a difference there. Now, when we talk about now let's talk a little bit more about how the employer can protect themselves as they recruit. We know stories of employees, great people, very talented, but they might not share all of the events they've had in the past, and that could be damaging when it comes to securing that talent and running background checks. So for that information, we want to bring in another guest, and we want to ask him, how does a loss of about $100 billion a year in workplace-related substance abuse affect a business owner? And for that, we want to talk to Mr. Jose Batista.
Thank you, Jamila.
Jose Batista is founder and president and CEO of Exxon Plus. He has years of experience in drug and alcohol testing, the drug and alcohol testing industry, and has collaborated in the creation of the International Drug-Free Workplace Accreditation. He is also an active community leader and holds a bachelor's in sociology with minor in criminal justice. Jose also holds a master's degree in business administration with a minor in human resources. Welcome, Jose. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here.
Joining us today. Jose, we've been discussing emotional intelligence in the workplace, how to manage our talent that way. We've also talked about the risk, taken by an employer when they don't understand diversity or treat their talent properly. So I want to ask you now, how does drug or substance use on the workplace affect a small business owner? How can they protect themselves from that?
It's very important when you have a small, mid-sized, or large corporation to have policies in place. When you have that policy in place, that is the protection for your business against any lawsuit. When we start doing the policy, first of all, they have 5 areas that you need to cover in that policy. Starting with the information need to be clear and a kid can read it. In other words, they can be maximum 5 pages. Never write a policy over 5 pages because people don't read it. Second one, you need to educate. You need to educate your supervisors. You need to educate your employees because they are the ones that going to, in the future, something happen, they can start a lawsuit regarding on what happened. Third, you need to post everywhere in your business posters. They said this is a drug-free workplace. We screen all our employees. Same thing if you're doing a background check on your employees, you need to be posted everywhere where it's a common areas like kitchen areas or the human resource offices at the entrance. Everywhere they need to have that. And the fourth element on that policy is to have the screening. If you do the drug screening, you can select a third-party administrator that is the preferred to do it, because that third-party administrator or consortium, what they're going to do is they're going to have that liability. They're the ones that are going to select who's going to be tested. That organization is the ones that are going to receive all of this information, then send that information to the human resource person in charge of receiving this documentation. And the last part of this puzzle is to have this employee assistant program, or it is on the DOT or Department of Transportation, is a substance abuse professional. This is a professional that's going to help that person in the case that person failed the test. They're going to help them, and they're going to help also their families to help them to get out of that addiction or in that habit that the person could have.
Okay, and going back to diversity, because we work now. I mean, America, we have people from all kinds of cultures and backgrounds here, and we spoke earlier about what is appropriate for one person due to their background, and what is appropriate in a workplace.
Well, it's very important when we talk about diversity to understand that in another country that could be legal. I'm gonna give you an example. Some places in South America, they are allowed to have alcohol on the workplace. Management, they have that as a welcome. It's like in our country, coffee, to have coffee for the guests. In other countries, have alcohol, whiskey or any other alcohol beverage. It's normal to have that. They need to understand that that is not allowed in America. That's one. Second one, when we're talking about diversity, we're talking about in some countries, some kind of drugs are legal. And they need to understand that in America, they are illegal. And that's why when you have that policies in place, you need to educate all your employees, and they need to understand what that employee is capable to do here or not.
And that goes back to what Dr. Wanda mentioned in regards to responsibility and honesty.
Correct.
And having that accountability. Just because I do something, it's normal for me, that doesn't necessarily mean that is appropriate for the company that I work with. So let's talk a little bit more about communication in regards to applying applying those standards. You spoke about having signs everywhere, but what happens if an employee tends to agree to all of this, but then they don't follow through, or the employer, after running a background check, finds perhaps information that is not favorable for that employee? How can an employer go about to handling a situation like that and doing it with dignity and respect, of course, and applying emotional intelligence so they don't get in trouble?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
When you have that, basically, is the policies.
Mm-hmm.
That policy need to be clear. That's why I said that the policy, a kid can read it and understand that in no longer than 5 pages. When you have that, it's the key to have any employee to understand. And when you're going to be hiring this organization, you need to follow these steps. They sign the document. That's when, as Maria said, you make that employee or candidate, because it will be a candidate on that point, to sign some documentation and understand the rules and regulations of your organization. Then after, if everything goes well, the organization in the future need to make some changes. That changes need to be presented also to the employees. And the employees need to agree, need to sign a document that said, yeah, we understand that these changes has been done. If the employee made the mistake and they start using any illegal drugs or alcohol on the workplace, automatically that can be a trigger to a termination based on violations of rules and regulations where that employee signed that document.
Excellent, Jose. Thank you for sharing about that. And going back, what you're saying definitely agrees with what Maria and Dr. Wanda shared in regards to keeping that communication open and having those dialogues, even though they might be at times difficult conversations, but they have to be addressed. Now, Maria, since you're an expert in human resources, how do you partner with an expert like Jose in regards to keeping all your records and keeping all of the standards that a company with as a drug-free workplace needs to keep?
That's a very interesting question, Jamila. We definitely have to work very closely because some of the drug testing, the fingerprint for the criminal background, that's something that could be critical. I totally agree with Jose that the documents should be written in a very easy format. A lot of no legalese, all that legal language is going to get lost in there. So we want to ensure fairness so that the employees understand that you will be drug tested. But there's a slippery slope when it comes to human resources and what Jose has to offer in the services. And you know this, Jose, which is there are a lot of people on medication.
Great point.
And sometimes the medication will show that they are on drugs. So I would like to understand from your perspective, you know, what do you do in that case when someone shows positive, but they're really on
they have
legal
a prescription.
medication
They have a prescription
from
for
the United States.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very important when you create that drug-free workplace, then you have a medical review officer. And that is something that is involved on the testing part, because that third-party administrator, they're going to handle your drug-free workplace. That organization offers that service. They have a drug an expert on review the result of the drug-free workplaces, including when they have medication and the person failed the test. That doctor will call that donor, and when they call the donor, that donor will need to give that information, how many times is using this prescription since when. The reason all this is keep private because the HIPAA regulation and HIPAA laws, but the doctor is the one that determine if the person have a false positive due of medication or if they have a real positive due of illegal drugs or abuse of substance of the regular drugs or medical drugs.
Okay, perfect. And Dr. Wanda, in regards to someone having a false positive because they have an actual condition that calls for them to take prescription medication, what type of best practice can you share based on emotional intelligence to handle that?
This is really key, Jamira, and it's really important the communication, like we mentioned before. The communication techniques, the listening and the asking. How you are going to tell that person and how you are going to ask questions that the person could listen and clarify the information. That back and forward of information has to be smooth, cannot be like point fingers into the person or putting labels to the person. Have to be open, listening, asking questions, clarifying, acknowledge the person for the good thing before I start to put point fingers. And that communication techniques come along with emotional intelligence because you sometimes have to put yourself in the shoes of others. And when you are in human resources, you have to communicate, you have to have an open space environment, safe and confidential, where the person could open to you and be honest. And not having what we call a chief emotional officer on board is the person that has those communication techniques and emotional intelligence skills that could open those conversations and build that environment where the flow of information is easy and is more welcome.
Excellent. Excellent. So we see in each one of the topics that we talked today, the bottom line is communication, effective communication. Instruct yourself, learn about the topic that you want to touch or develop in your company. Partner with experts, collaborate with people who are on the field or on the industry that you might need the extra support. That could definitely, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but to me that's a great best practice. You know, collaborate with the right people when it comes to, especially in such delicate topics, when it comes to dealing with the human resources and dealing with all these issues. And today we want to give Dr. Wanda the opportunity to speak about the future projects that she has.
In the W Life Skills Institute, we offer seminars, certifications, and workshops in emotional intelligence. You could find more information in www.drwinstitute.com, and we are going to be more than welcome to answer any question about emotional intelligence.
And we are happy to announce that Maria Rivera is going to be one of the experts joining businessnature.org as one of our feature writers. And she, of course, is going to be sharing a lot of her knowledge and wisdom in regards to litigation and human resources there, Maria.
You can also find me on LinkedIn, Maria Antonia Rivera. And if you need to reach out to me, please, again, feel free to reach out to Yamira Lee Johnson.
And Jose, tell us about your future projects too.
Thank you, Mira. You can visit our website, www.examplusfl.com. We offer free seminars basically in the Central Florida area, but also in the whole state. We go to any corporation or university that want to hold one of these seminars regarding why you need to have a drug-free workplace, the importance of have safety on the workplace, because the drug-free workplace is part of safety on the workplace. Or you can contact us at 407-238-5336. That means our office phone number.
And that is all the information we have today. I definitely want to thank my panel of experts for joining us and sharing all their wisdom and knowledge about developing a successful business. If you have a business or you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur or you have a leadership role in the community, go to businessnature.org. You'll be able to find tools there to find your audience and develop your brand and grow your mission. Also, we want to thank our producer today, Lynette Berry, for her wonderful job and helping us develop this dream of ours. We want to be available to you to help you. We want to be able to be a resource for you. You could like our page. Facebook is Business Nature Inc. We are also on Twitter. You could follow us there. And Business Nature believes that success is a right. It's not an option for just some. So keep walking with purpose, and much love and peace to all of you.